Shh, go ahead and close that stuff. Don't look at that stuff. Just look at the screen. Look at the screen. Look at the screen. Don't look at that stuff. All right. No. You need to finish watching that. We probably won't get to it in class. It is linked. Okay, we did. I was with somebody else in the hall, so I wasn't really sure if we did or not. I came back and it ran out, but I was like, all right, so that's perfect. You didn't post. Post something real quick.
To the talking thing?
To the talking thing, yeah. And don't post anything anyone else has already posted. So you kind of have to read it. It's a first come, first serve. And our prompts were essentially twofold. You could talk about how in any level of cultural context, which it works for many parts of the course, it's not just one. How does this documentary sort of, is there an obvious connection? We know that. But what does it really do for someone who's read the novel or vice versa? What is the relationship in terms of this somewhat work of fiction? Or I guess we should call that somewhat a work of fiction with some elements of reality. How does that work in conjunction with this documentary? Also in terms of being a part two text, where have we seen specific elements of those learning outcomes and topics? So it can be specific as the role of editing and what effect. I don't think it was this class, but I will ask you this, and it'll make sense or doesn't make sense when we talk about it. It wasn't this class. Did anybody find it weird when VRL was like, hey, give me that camera you have and I'll wear it in there and you can see everything that happens between myself and this woman.
Yeah, that's what I'm writing, because like, if he got caught, then I could have ruined all of his chances of getting.
All right. I completely respect that. I was just thinking from a different level. It's like, well, didn't they already have the camera? Just thinking that was like, oh, great idea, Vlad. We never thought about using the, you know what I'm saying? So why was that put in there in such a framed way? And you're right. Well, it's not going to be to his advantage. Or if there is, what was left out? So that whole role of editing thing, and then it goes back to what were the production people trying to do? This is public service, public broadcasting service. PBS is frontline. Interesting. How does that work? 2 people will present today. Our Woman at Point Zero topics. Nice. Can't wait. What's your topic again? Are all the male characters bad, basically? Yeah. We might even say that word for word. So we already know immediately they're going to give you a bunch of stuff. If you're thinking, how is a social group represented and why? Well, there you go. Maybe the answer is all bad. This is why. Maybe it's mostly bad and not entirely bad, and this is why. We'll see what they have to say. All of that will be very useful for that prescribed question. We'll go ahead and try to look at some more, if not finish up. I think on Wednesday it says we'll finish up the prior knowledge topics. We've already looked at a couple. One dealing with, I think, the female genitalia mutilation. There's no particular order on that. So your homework, which is proper homework, you need to come back with, I don't care if it's on paper or if it's digital, but with Caroline Duffy's poem, Hour. Annotate that guy in 20 minutes. So treat it like it was an oral commentary. When you come back to class on Wednesday, if the desks are looking strange and there's a microphone on a table, it's because one of you will do a proper commentary. We will record it and everyone will watch. And grade you. Like I'll be grading you. Everybody during the, except for that one lucky person, everybody during the commentary process will also need to be thinking about the questions at the end. So I'll be writing, I'll be thinking about questions that help him or her get a better grade on that commentary. I'll give you a proper grade. Everybody else will give you a proper grade. Everyone will be watching. It will be recorded. It'll be great. Only one of you will go, I think. 2 might be fun, but it'll be half an hour for 2. But everybody will come back with a proper document, which is like, this is what I would get in 20 minutes. So in theory, I don't want you to spend more than 20 minutes on it. Does that make sense? I mean, if you do because it's your first time with the poem, that's acceptable. But definitely don't make it less than 20 minutes. Because you expect to come back and talk for a good 12 minutes on that guy. That being said, if we're sitting, really think about this. If we're sitting here and we're recording it and everybody's watching you, what are we more concerned about with that performance? Analysis or the actual process? Both always, but let's just go ahead and hope we can get process, because the physical requirements and constraints of you doing that in class with the time limits, with the proper setup, that's very advantageous for you. I know you don't want to be picked, but let's just focus on like your thesis statement process. That being said, it doesn't have to, your annotation isn't really an unseen commentary. I'm okay with you going back and look at your Duffy notes and thinking about taking your time in terms of understanding that poem. So how does that annotated sheet end up being a solid commentary is really what we're going to look at on Wednesday. After all the stuff today, we'll do some Know Your Novel. We'll do that based on tables. So you need to have your novel out. Which one? The candlestick?
No.
Probably.
Creepy guy.
Oh, great.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
You like Oscar the Grouch because you're homeless. What?
Gaston.
oh, there you go. Mr. White.
That's observation skills.
But like, he's
All right.
really, this guy's really like, of course.
Find the guy on to the left of Gaston that looks like some kind of mentally deficient monkey. Whatever that guy with a pot on his head is. I'm glad I'm not that guy. Thank you, Mark. I don't think I've seen this. So. All right. Let's go to our 12 talk and look at that real quick. Some kind of quick formative thing here. Here's just no. Questionable, we're all looking at the same thing, so no big deal. 2 minutes go by, Justin. Questionable that Vlad would be part of this video as his face would be exposed to the world in addition to potential prison time. All right. 2 minutes ago. Wait, didn't you watch this whole you saw this whole thing played out, right? What happened to Vlad in the prison time? He got 5 years of probation. I don't know what that means, 5 years of probation. Your death sentence has been probated. I don't know what that means. So he's not going to prison. And probably didn't really pay much of a fine either. So we can go ahead and chalk that up to corruption and injustice. Now you can ask yourself on a very different level, if this had been some male citizen who had been wronged on some other level, or maybe even the same level, would the verdict have been the same? Or is it now there's some sort of gender bias because she's just a young woman? So does the corruption trump everything? And if you pay enough money, it doesn't matter what you did? Or is the fact that, well, this stuff happens all the time? Remember the one person's response when she went to the police, and the police, I can't remember who it says, but they quoted her. Well, didn't she know what she was getting into? I was like, it's your fault. It's your fault for wanting to have a better job and believing somebody who you might have every reason to believe, like someone you knew, someone your family trusted. And just because of all these horrible things that happened to you, you should have known better. So potentially, yeah, all those factors contribute to the fact that he is not in jail. And we can't quantify which is more important. Probably didn't pay a whole lot of money to get out of that, which is sad. So 6 to 7 years of prison to no prison, and probably not even really paying a fine. The way the prostitutes are telling their story of what happened to them is similar to the way Firdaus is telling us about her story. Okay. So what does that do? Like intimacy, adds level of sympathy, is that correct? Doesn't that sort of work with, remember when we saw White King, Red Rubber, I get those colors all messed up. Purple mushroom. It's like black continent. Oh, Africa. Oh. Anyways, you know what I'm talking about. Because it was historical, they had actors recreating the first hand, and I think we agreed, or someone made the comment that it's better than just having somebody voice over and just show images of things. When we see someone telling us their story, even if it's like a silhouette, obviously we're more connected. So that's an editing thing. Recurring thing in naivete and the existence of sexual abuse, although they are both shown through different perspectives, male versus female. Okay. Interesting. Document shows the whole background of the victim, so we resonate emotionally. Show the kids, the husband, etc. Good. So they had to go to Moldova to get the images and the interviews with the mother and all of that as well, right? Symbolic of no happy endings. Oof. Okay. No justice as well. Probably important. Did it say what happened to VRL and Anya? What was her name? What was the wife's name? Katya, sorry. What happened to them as a couple? She was pregnant. She lost that child. But what happened to them as a couple? Does it say? She's definitely detached. I don't think they stayed together. I don't, and that could, I mean, obviously we have to say something is there with what happened to her. So even less happy endings, correct? Seems an obvious cut when there is Katya suddenly comes back home after all the hassle. Yeah, there's a huge time frame in chronology as well. Why is the guy willing to secretly record things? If he is caught, it couldn't completely ruin his chances to get his wife back. Yes. Also, who's funding this thing? We can assume PBS. To understand, if you live in Moldova and you immigrate to Ukraine for financial reasons, that's extremely poor. That's like, you know, we know in China, people immigrate from one area to an area in China. It's like, you have to assume where they're coming from is really bad off. If the place they're going to, we think is bad off. So Frontline's paying for this, and maybe there was that was part of the deal. It's like, we'll do this only if you're willing to do this. And apparently, I mean, it worked, correct? So in that sense, I guess you could say it's a happy ending in terms of PBS having a fantastic documentary and Katya somehow getting released. Translation, affect meaning. What do you mean by that, Chris? Okay, there's always that when we have translations. You've probably seen it being bilingual. What about the people who are being translated? You know what I'm saying? If you're going to tell your story, now your story is really left up to somebody else, and you have no idea if that's accurate or not. Correct? Semi-fictional, but the events have a basis in real life. This documentary, despite the different setting. Okay. So it does once again, it is a real world application of where this similar scenario does exist. It's not just a one-off in places we don't necessarily know about. It happens all over. Theme motif of smoking suggests desperation, ignorance, and carelessness. I don't know if I call it a motif, but just the fact that he is smoking like that might mean he's addicted to nicotine. But it does add to his sort of arrogance, you know. If you're in trouble, you're not going to be comfortable, and he seems really comfortable, and that's sort of sad, isn't it? He doesn't seem like he's done anything wrong at all. It's almost like, you know, it's very bizarre the way he tells this story. Eesh. All right. If he didn't add, do add. Let's go back to the whole production thing. Think about this. Why do we see, I can't remember her proper last name, but the producer of this, she comes on and uses the word ethics. There's an ethical, problematic, polemic, whatever she says. Villarreal states, if we take the video and now we can maybe blackmail them, I'll turn this video in if you don't release Katya. And now the producer's like, well, if something bad were to happen to him, we gave him this sort of source. We gave him the fuel for this potential tragedy. And now what do? Isn't there always a level of ethics when you start documenting these sorts of things? If you're truly just a fly on the wall, it shouldn't be a problem. But this guy, we can assume this guy was not going to end up in Antalya, Turkey without that company, the production company, without Frontline. Maybe he'd even come up with this idea. So we know how people are manipulated when it comes to reality TV or not. They're getting paid for that. He has to be getting something out of this as well. Or maybe, you know, what is it? Is it financial? Is it emotional? Does he just feel good that people are on his side? He's not alone? Wouldn't that just make human sense? So everybody, there's a symbiotic relationship here. The other one is, here's the thing, if we're all about doing good, remember, was anybody really, really gutted when they said that boy died a month later? All he needed was like $80 for an operation. How many of you said to yourself, well, just give him $80? Why didn't they just give him $100? It's PBS. Save that kid's life. Obviously they didn't. Not saying they should have, probably shouldn't have. But the thing is, like, wait, you know, we're not, what are we? What are we doing here? We're producing something which is supposed to, in terms of PBS, it's supposed to be educational. And it certainly is. That's why it's quite different from reality TV. But there's still that level of ethics and culpability and investment. And how does that work? What did that one girl get out of sharing her story? Was she paid? Was she trying to warn people about this or that? Think about it. And how do you approach people when you want something, you got a great idea, but your idea is not your life, it's somebody else's life? How do you convince them into sharing this? And it's like, yeah, we got it. So that's pretty, in terms of ethics and maybe even TOK. Nice presentation there. She says, now what do? We don't want this guy to get hurt. Did anybody find it? Once again, I mean, if you have hidden cameras, isn't the whole point that we're going to use these hidden cameras? But they purposely show VRL saying, hey, give me your camera. I'll record everything. You can see it. I mean, if we're not really paying attention as if, oh, this was his idea, we know it was not his idea. He might have, was reiterating, let's do this. Or maybe the way he said it was kind of, yes, give me your camera as we discussed. But it's presented as if he instigates this idea. Maybe it's because if he does get busted, it doesn't show as if PBS was like, you're going to have to wear this camera. Let's just hope you don't get busted because you're going to be in trouble and you'll never see your wife again. So it might have been a way of them in terms of editing, the role of editing, to be like, viewer might think it's his idea, not necessarily ours. Obviously, it's their idea. At the very beginning of the documentary, it's like, you'll see this from inside perspective because we'll be using hidden cameras. Wow. So why, there's a whole bunch of stuff they have to cut out. They definitely left that in. It's only about 15, 20 seconds, but they left it in out of 42 minutes. So it was there for a reason. Maybe they thought it would just framework when we saw the camera. There wasn't some confusion from our point. Maybe it just seemed like a good moment. So it's interesting. How do you take stuff which is already there, manipulate it, or use it to your advantage? Leave things in, leave things out. What are you trying to do with that? All right. You girls, I'm assuming your presentation is in our group folder. Send me an email, a shared thing. Real quick, don't have to say anything. Only need one or two of you. What could you do with this in terms of an FOA, the documentary? What little we know or can quickly remember, we should know quite a bit, but going back like learning outcomes and these sorts of things. What could you do? Yeah. I mean, you could literally go back as if it was the editing process, look at things, and as we always do with perspective with FOA, which is nice, have two of you, one, not necessarily having a different perspective, but talking thing out loud, like, well, if we show this next to this, it's going to make us look this, it's going to make the situation look like that. And you could break down the conscientious laying of the scenes and the word choice, not that they made them say things. If we leave it here or show this like that or include this, it's basically an oral commentary, an analysis of what we're seeing, but with that very part two focus involved. It'd be very effective. Kind of cool. The editing room. Thank you, Stanley, for adding to that year two text document. Our year two text PowerPoint presentation. Didn't you add to that? Your name's popping up on there. It says you did. Year two text. Modified by? All right, presentation. I'll be your slide boy. Whenever you're ready, girls. Yeah, make it a proper presentation. Walk around, pontificate, gesticulate, make it burn. I don't know. My network experience is difficult to check your connectivity. Yeah, I see it. It doesn't want to open. All right, you can go without it. We'll get here soon enough.
So our presentation is based off the question, are all men bad? And our outline slide, let's say that the first thing we're gonna do is explore what does bad exactly mean. The second thing we're gonna do is, what do all male characters in the novel do, like what are the ways to the story, mostly in relation to our protagonist heroes. And then we're gonna talk about the ambiguity of their actions. And lastly, we're gonna draw conclusions. So regarding badness, what qualifies a character's action as bad? Well, the subjectivity of one's moral compass changes per character, and everyone has a different worth. Cultural and historical context also make a big difference, particularly in this novel, because, well, the Islamic faith, things that happen in Egypt are quite different than most of our lives, probably. And between the Middle East and Western Middle East.
Example on page 46, I said that Malcolm was a well-respected sheik, well-versed in the teachings of religion, and he therefore could not possibly be in the habit of beating his wife. She replied that it was precisely men well-versed in religion who beat their wives. The precepts of religion permitted such punishment. So cultural context is not necessarily an example of how religion is used to justify beatings in the book, and also considering the fact that in Egypt, and especially many Islamic countries, all religious teachers and interpreters were often men, so there actually might be some bias in the way that things were taught in the context of Islam. And also furthermore, for example, one example of this is also in the Al-Quran, where it says men are the maintainers of women, because Allah has made some of them to excel others. The good women are therefore obedient, guarding the unseen as Allah has guarded, and those on whose part you fear desertion, admonish them, and leave them alone in the sleeping places and feed them. So wrongdoings are often defined and based off of sins in religion. For example, laws are sometimes based off the rules stated in a particular religion. However, does that still make them acceptable? Because violence is generally viewed as bad. However, if it is justified as law, does it still retain its quality of negativity?
Can you say it again, that last bit?
The last
little bit.
started with violence.
Quality of
Negatives.
maintain its.
So, if, for example, something such as violence, if it is considered to be a bad thing because you are hurting another person, if the law states that it is permissible, does that act of violence still contain its negative aspects? Like,
Nice, straight question.
Alright, so our first example regarding the characters is of Harry House's father, and he was briefly mentioned at the beginning of the novel and described mostly as an abusive man. And the quote to support this is that he knew very few things in life, one of which was how to beat his wife and make her fight the dusty street. And so he was quite rude, and we also saw in another quote that he didn't care about his female female children, and he displayed a lack of respect towards the female gender, quote unquote. When one of his female children died, my father would beat his supper, and then he would go to sleep. When the child that died was a boy, he would beat my mother, then have his supper and lie down to sleep. So this clearly shows that he has like no care for the female children that dies. And what do these quotes say about how men treat women if when your own daughter dies and you really just don't care? But when your son dies, it's a big deal and it actually matters more to you than your other children. So like, is there any emotional connection at all between this particular male character and he's not abusive?
Good.
And then the second character that we're going to talk about is Firdausi's uncle. So at first he was quite positive in the sense that he introduces Firdaus to reading, pays for her education, allows her to go to school, and enlightens her intellectually in quite a few ways. With the quote, "When I opened my lids again, I had the feeling of looking out through them for the first time. If I had just come to the world, or was being born a second time, that I knew in fact I had been born some years ago." And this is contrasted by his negative part where he used to molest her as a child when no one was watching, and which is a sin in a type of multiple cultures where people aren't allowed to speak up against people who essentially abuse them. And her uncle also marries her off for a dowry. I think in the book he mentions when he was talking to his wife, even if I get like 100 pounds out of the wife, it would be with him, which is obviously quite rude in a sense that he's supposed to be raising this girl and he's just ready to send her off from him because she inconveniences him. She inconveniences him. And he was already over 60, whereas I had not turned 19 yet. The person who knew she was married.
Speaking of Firdaus' marriage, let's talk about her husband, Shimon. So he marries Firdaus, first of all, and this situation is uncomfortable for her as well as some readers because he's so much more older than she is. As stated before, he was already 60, whereas she had not yet turned 19. So this is interesting because it actually represents a demographic of growth across the people who are married off at extremely young ages for money. And that kind of money is called a dowry. So and often it really just puts them at the level of animals because if you sell animals for money, kind of in the same way you would sell your daughter to an ex-woman. And furthermore, he violently assaults Firdaus to the point where she chooses to actually run. And as far as his behaviors go, he really isn't a fun man. He's like incredibly violent because he does scold and